My name's Dan Williams and I'm partner with Nick Williams at Williams Brothers Racing.
So I'm Nick Williams and owner of Williams Brothers Racing, which incorporates OCS paint, WBR race engines. We build the cars, we have the engine shop. So everything started really full-time as a business, as a limited company, 2014. Before that, we were building some cars and racing some stuff, run what you brung, and doing some racing.
Yeah, so I got into drag racing car when I was, must have been 4 or 5 years old, because Dad's always been around cars, so we've just always been around it. And just going at the sand pod in the late 80s, I remember right back, you know, and yeah, late 80s. That's what spurred me on to always want to get into drag racing, and then I bought myself a Chevy Nova, and it kind of snowballed from there.
So racing really has always been something we've had an interest in, always had a presence at Sandspot in terms of run what you brungs or going to watch the racing, and that's really from Dad. He's always built hot rods. He built his first 32 coupe in 1989, so we've always been around the American car scene. So I guess it was a kind of natural thing for us to be interested in it. We had hot rods from a young age. At 17, both me and Dan both had street rods, hot rods. We raced those, run what you brung stuff. And then that developed into doing some proper competition stuff. So the first specific race car was Dan's 69 Nova that he's still got today. And I had a Falcon at the time that I raced. And then we've just gone into this stock eliminator world. And so racing those, racing UK, over in Scandinavia and in the US. I think any motorsport can be dangerous, and you have to just make sure that you take all the precautions necessary. So, you know, there's a lot of things that get said about safety equipment being out of date and having to replace harnesses either 2 or 5 years. It's just one of those things, you know. So as you know, I had an incident in May with a 69 Camaro, having just got it out with a fresh engine, fresh transmission, and like the 5th pass or something. The cars we build, because of how they haven't got a load of power, so we have to get them moving very quickly, hence the wheel stands. That 60 foot and 330 time is the most important part of the racetrack for us. And the car just come up, got out of the groove and went into the wall.
Yeah, well, I was the next pair to run, and I was in the same lane that Nick was in, so I've pulled round and like just sat in the burnout box, and I'm just sat there watching. You know, cars running. I'm just sat there, and then I see Nick go up on the wheel stand. I thought, well, that's pretty normal. Then he went right, and I thought, well, it's done that. It did that a couple of times, but it'd be alright. And then it's like goes into slow mo, and I just see the car like hook left, and it hit the wall, and I was just like shocked, because I thought, no, that's not happening. You know, and it just was so real.
You know, fortunately, I was alright, a bit shocked by it more than anything. It's just racing, isn't it? You know, it's just one of those things. If you worried about everything, you probably wouldn't leave your house in the morning. So I raced that on and off really since 2012, I think. It's kind of been sat for the last few years. I've had a fresh engine done for it, and then in the meantime, I was fortunate enough to be able to buy the Copo Camaro. With the racing, before a race, my worst point is when I'm in the staging lanes. So you sit there and I'll look at, I have a two-step button for how the car launches on the brake pedal. I must look at that, I don't know, a dozen times. And then you think about your race, and you think about who you're racing, and then you start thinking about the scenarios of it. And that's my worst point, up until you get to the front of the lanes, and the minute they tell you to fire up, that kind of all goes out your head. And you know then you've just got a procedure that you follow. I must look down at my shifter and think, am I in first? And I must check that half a dozen times. So that's something I always do. The same as I've launched the car and not been on the two-step button. That's why I'm always looking at that. So I think every driver has something they check because of an experience they've had. If you're in eliminations and you don't win, as I know you've seen, that's just a bit annoying really, especially if it's a close race or you don't do anything wrong. That's kind of a big deflation, because that's the one thing with drag racing. You haven't got a chance to do that bend any better, try and catch that person in front. If you don't get it right in a quarter mile, you're done. You pack your stuff up and go home. So it can be, from that side of things, pretty brutal really. Yeah, European finals. I was running second by 160 points. Teammate Gary was leading. And there's quite a big target on our back in comp eliminator. We were undefeated. We haven't lost a race for like 2.5 years or something. So you go into it pretty confident. All the cars were running really good. I think we qualified 2, 3 and 4. And Reuven came out with his car, which was, he'd done a load of upgrades, so it was really fast. But it added to the class, so you know you've got some competition. But yeah, and then qualifying was good, the cars were going good. And then eliminations, I think we had round 1 on the Saturday, which was okay, everybody went through that. But then round 2, it was a total whitewash, with Gary getting shut off for fluid leak, Dan losing by 008 and me spinning the tyres. Surreal almost, because you're confident in what you're doing and confident in the cars, and for all 3 of us to go out, all 3 team cars to go out second round, was a big shock to us.
I think it was the first time one of the team cars hasn't been in the final or won for 3 years. We all had just bad times of it. We either went out first round or second round. It's just kind of how it goes, you know. I wasn't particularly great on the tree for some reason, and because I was against a faster car, and the way comp works, you get penalised if you go too much under your index. So and I didn't want to hit too much out of my index. So what I did was, as I approached the finish line, I just rolled off the throttle and got on the brakes just before the finish line. But of course I'm against a 7-second car, so that's really hard to judge how far, because they're suddenly on you so quick. And really, broke too much. So it was a bit sort of disappointing, but then that's racing, and everyone else has stepped up the games, and that makes it more interesting. So,
but you know what? It's just one of those. We still came second. So. And Gary won it, so it's still a teammate, a team car that won. So you can't really ask for much more than that.